So that solves my immediate concerns, which is that whether you can see or hear me. So it is just about 4:05 right now, and I think that is enough time for people to join. Just to give you an idea about today's session is about the US student visa, and we will be covering a lot of ground as we cover the visa process. Some of you are students who have actually worked with me in the past, who are attending this program, and some of you are students who would not have interacted with me before. So we'll just go a little bit over the entire process about the visa application, as well as the visa interview, and so on and so forth, right? I had actually planned to do this webinar from my office, but because of Delhi voting today, it is sharp. And I hope that those of you who are attending from Delhi NCR have exercised the right as a citizen to vote. We have done the screen check. We have done the mic check. Few rules. The program is such that the Q&A session is going to be at the very end. So please hold your questions. I mean, you can put them in the Q&A box, but we will not be able to address them until the very end of the program, right? So without wasting too much more time, I think we can move on to the beginning of the session, which is about the student visa. Before we begin, a little bit about Longshore Education, who we are, what we do. We are a Delhi-based education consulting company. We help students all over India apply to universities abroad. We are not limited to the United States, but of course, our students our primary markets, the students definitely are interested in are US, UK, Canada, Australia. And today's webinar is going to be completely focused on the US student visa. We have partnerships with over 750 universities and apply to a wide category of institutions. We have philosophy of a best fit, where we try to make sure that the students end up going to universities which actually help them in the long term for their career and actually suit them in their whether that comes to their personal requirements, whether it comes to their professional requirements, whether it comes to their academic requirements. Before we go on further again, a little bit about myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Yash Sharma. I am the host today. I studied at the University of Texas, Dallas, actually, a number of years ago at this point. And for the past 10 years, I have had experience in helping students apply to universities abroad. Now, I helped start Longshore Education. I started Longshore Education to help separate myth from fact, because I feel like there is a lot of misinformation on the internet these days. At one point of time, the issue that students faced was that there was not enough information for students to actually get the right information. But now we have reached that stage where there's too much information, and it seems like the students are not sure whether they are able to get the right information from the right place or not. I have co-hosted US Embassy visa sessions with consular officers in the past, whether this was online during the pandemic as well as offline when the event that we used to do was available. So I actually did attend and did host the visa sessions with officers from the US Visa Embassy in the past. So just for you to know that, what my experience in this background is. I would say over a 10 years period, I would definitely have counseled more than 1,000 students who have been admitted to top universities, Carnegie Mellon, Southern California, Berkeley, obviously not limited to these. We've got MIT as well, Columbia, Northwestern, HEC Paris, some non-US ones, London Business School, and many others, right? So just giving you an introduction about myself. And let's just dive right into the actual presentation about the US visa. So where do we stand now with the US visa application scenario? The student visa refusals, there's a bit of a cropping issue with the image, but the student visa issues, the student visa issuances happened to peak around 2016, and the numbers have still not yet recovered. If anyone wants to know what happened in 2016, it is, of course, the election of Donald Trump, which actually put a lot of dampener on the student market and the interest for students to actually consider the US specifically and international education in general. So since then, we have seen a bit of an uptick. But last year, in 2023, we actually saw the record highest rejection rate of 35% and the record lowest acceptance rate at 65%. So even though the interest of students has definitely increased, the rejection rate has also increased. The other thing that has happened is that in the past, we have seen that Indian students are far more likely to receive a visa denial than Chinese students. Now, this is due to a variety of factors, but there is not a historical number available from 2020 onwards. But in the historical past, from 2010 to 2018, we have seen that the Indian students were far more likely to get denied than Chinese students. If you look at this bar, if you look at this graph, China is actually at the top. Their rejection rate has also increased, but India is way below. And average rejection rate is right in the middle, right? But hey, it's not all bad news. We do have some good news as well, which is that the most number of Indian students are there in the US right now. Indian students are creating a boom at US universities. It has never been more popular among Indian students. And the record number of visas were actually issued to Indian students last year. About 140,000 visas were issued. And that is actually a very high number for students. And it was number of students from India. Out of that, most of them were graduate students. So 8 out of 10 incoming students are graduate students. And in the projections, India is supposed to surpass China within the next couple of years. So both positive and negative records are being set. How to become part of the good record? That is exactly what we are here to discuss. Moving on, a little bit about the student visa. Now, what is a student visa? It is just a sticker in your passport. It gives you the right to show up at the border to ask for entry. I know there are some other, details that you can think about it, but that is the basic definition. It is a sticker in your passport. It allows you to show up at the border of the country and ask for entry. It does not guarantee entry, but you have the right to actually request the entry. There are 3 types of student visas: F1, M1, and J1. But the most common type is F1 for academic programs, whether it is high school, masters, bachelor's, PhD, and so on and so forth. For the intents of today's webinar, the scope is going to remain focused on the F1 visa, and a lot of it will apply to a J1 visa as well. But mostly this is going to be staying focused towards the F1 visa because that is the most common visa that is there. It is required at all levels of study. As I mentioned, it is issued at a validity of 5 years. So if you're going for a program which is at a bachelor's level, you will get a 5-year validity. If you're going at a program which is even of 1 year, you will still get a 5-year F1 visa. Now, does that mean you can stay in the US for 5 years? It does not mean that. It just means that for the next 5 years, you have the right to request entry. Now, if you are pursuing a program, you have the right to get admitted to the country. But if your program is completed and you are not pursuing some kind of post-program at a different capacity, whether it is working, whether it is pursuing an optional practical training, it is perfectly fine. You have to maintain your status as a student. Only then the student visa is valid. You might already know this. Some of you already have the appointment dates. There's a 2-step process of the Offsite Facilitation Center and the Consular Interview. OFC is the Offsite Facilitation Center. The biometrics are at a VAC location, which is the Visa Application Center location. There are several of them, 5 of them associated within India, and they have their own embassies and consulates. So the biometrics, including the fingerprinting, pen printing, and the interview is at the embassy. The biometrics is at the VAC, and the interview is at the embassy or the consulate. Some students who have got a previous F1 visa, for example, if you applied for an F1 visa while you were a bachelor student and now you want to go again for your master's and your F1 visa has not yet expired, you can definitely request for an interview waiver. The only students who are eligible for the students who are eligible for an interview waiver have to have some kind of previous visa that has either been valid or been expired in the last 48 months. So that is 4 years. Except for B1, B2, that is a normal tourist visa. Until 2023, we were able to actually get the interview waiver for students who did have the tourist visa as well, but that has unfortunately been discontinued. So to begin the process, what do you need? Honestly, it's very simple. You need a passport. The passport needs to be valid for 6 months, not more than that. You can actually renew it in the US as well if your passport is going to expire after that. And the second document that you need is a certificate of eligibility, also known as the I-20, which is issued by the university. The passport is your identity document. You should definitely have that. And make sure that your whatever documents that you're putting forward from that point onwards goes according to the passport itself. Certificate of eligibility is the I-20, where the university has basically done its check that we have declared the student as eligible to receive a student visa. You must sign this document when you get it. It's an online document as well. I mean, it's an online document. You can print it out and sign it anytime before the interview, and you have that ready. So you don't need to collect multiple I-20s, right? Just get the one I-20 that you are, actually using for the visa interview. It actually does look inconsistent if you are collecting multiple I-20s and trying to, go for a visa interview with like lots of I-20s. Just select the university that you plan to attend, unless you want to book the date and you are waiting for a wait list for another program. That does happen sometimes. And then you can go ahead and do it a bit. Wait for the second I-20 as you have scheduled the appointment with the first I-20. That is the only situation where you should need two I-20s. So once you have your passport and I-20, here's what you have to do next. You have to complete the DS-160 form. The form is available at this particular link. I will, send you a follow-up email and post it as well. You can also Google the DS-160 form and you should be able to find it. It is about 22 pages long and you can save it. You don't have to fill it completely at once. And the most important thing to know is that you don't need to submit the form before booking the slot. The second step to follow is to create a profile at this portal, the US visa scheduling portal. Pay the visa fee and schedule your interview. Use the DS-160 number from earlier. It is in the format of AA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And the DS-160 number can't be changed. Pay the visa fees, convert it into INR, Indian rupees, and schedule your interview slot. Both the biometrics and interview need to be booked at the same time, and dates go by very quickly. So please remain alert. Pay the SEVIS fees. Pay the SEVIS fees online using a credit card. You cannot use internet banking or UPI or anything like that because it is paid in dollars. And this is a mandatory fee in that every student has to pay. And the details that you have to use against it are there in your I-20. We'll just go into each of these steps, in the further slides. The DS-160, it is the actual application form. You can log on to this website, take a screenshot of this page if you like. We'll also give you the link in a bit. Fill in your details, complete page 1 and save it. You will not be able to return if you don't fill page 1. This number over here, which you can see, is the AA number, which is also the DS-160 number. It is also the DS-160 ID. It is also the DS-160 confirmation number, right? They're all the same thing. It is a 22-page online form. You need to fill about your details, your academics, your family background, anything that the US government would like to know. They do request it over here. A few tips that are common questions that do come. National ID number is there in India. It is Aadhaar. Don't listen to Quora, Tumblr, Instagram, Reels, Shorts, whatever. That Aadhaar is not a national ID number. It is very much a national ID number. It is not a proof of citizenship, but it is a proof of residence. So it does apply. It works exactly the way the US Social Security number works, right? Passport book number does not apply for Indians. And if you have only one name, put the name in the surname of your this particular form. So, for example, if your name is Aditya, then your single name will go into your surname and your given name will be FNU, right? You have to put first name unavailable, but you don't write the whole thing, just FNU, right? So going ahead to the SEVIS payment, again, it's mandatory for students for all the other visa cases as well, which I mentioned, which is F1, M1 and J1. Just log on to that website, fmjfee.com, click pay I-901 fee. Use your details from the I-20 where you can see the SEVIS ID. Pay the $350 by card, international debit card, international credit card, only payable in dollars, right? The receipt itself is called the I-901 and you do have to save it. You can pay it anytime during the application process, but at least have it paid 1 week before when you book your appointment. One thing over here is that anyone can make these payments. Okay, at any point of time, if you see a payment, like for example, for the visa fees, or this one, anyone can pay the SEVIS fees, anyone can pay the visa fees. It is not an issue. You just need, a friend can do it, your father can do it, your mother can do it, your parents can do it. Anyone can really pay the visa fees for you. Moving on, we have the problem portal that seems to create issues for all kinds of students. For the US visa scheduling portal, this was updated in July 2023. You do have to create a profile over here. if you previously applied for a visa before July 2023, your profile will be claimable, right? Please make sure, and I cannot emphasize this any more than, I cannot overemphasize this, you should use a unique email ID. If at any point of time you have used an email ID before, which was linked to two applicants, it creates all kind of issues with this particular portal. You'll have to, if you have, for example, if let's say you were a dependent and you and your parent, like whether your mother, let's say you and your mother went to the visa interview and both of you used the same email ID and you were the dependent, then when your portal is migrated from the old portal to the new portal, both of your profiles will be migrated and will have the same email ID. So one of you will definitely end up having an issue, and that will invariably be the dependent, which is the student who is not going to be able to apply for the F1 until that problem is particularly resolved. I'm dealing with that problem right now itself with some of my students. So definitely making sure that, use a unique email ID. Otherwise, you will have to talk to the US Travel Docs support line. And honestly speaking, they do have a travel helpline in the sense that you can wait in line to try to get help, but they're not really helpful in any sense of the word. This is where you actually, after creating the portal, you can start the application over here. And the main thing to remember is that nothing in this portal can be edited. Your name, after you put it in, cannot be edited. Your passport number, after you put it in, cannot be edited. Your email that is associated with this profile, it technically can be edited, but there is a lot of process where you actually have to write to the visa support office and write to the scheduling profile, and you cannot also edit the DS-160 number. At one point of time, you were able to edit the DS-160 number. That is not the case anymore. Once you have scheduled your appointment and in the appointment confirmation, the DS-160 number is there. That is the DS-160 number which you have to show up with at the appointment. If your DS-160 number does not match, you will have to cancel and reschedule your appointment. They are being very strict about this now. This is because agents were using, student details to block the slots, but then many slots were becoming unused. And as you know, the US embassies have had a lot of over demand of the visa slots, while not enough people are actually showed up there. So none of these things can be edited. Make sure that you enter them properly. And of course, as I mentioned before, use a unique email ID. I'll just show you what the payment screen looks like. Once you have created the application, fill it up, you can select, there's a simple wizard where you can actually select F1 and then go forward and then go forward. And basically, it's a fairly straightforward process. If you are eligible for Dropbox, which is the interview waiver process, that is also where that will show up. And ultimately, you end up with a payment screen. The payment screen looks something like this, where once you make the payment, you have the chance to apply it to your application. Please remember, do not try to make any other application, any other case payments with this particular receipt number. For example, if your parent is traveling with you with a B1, B2, or if someone else is coming with you at a different visa class, do not try to make their payments at the same time. If, for example, you and your brother or sibling or whatever are traveling at the same time, do not make the payment separately. You have to completely do a unique profile, and you cannot do any kind of combined payments when it comes to the student visa. The only time a student visa can be combined in payment is if, for example, a dependent is coming with you. So that means if there is a dependent who is an F2 status, your wife, for example, or your husband or your child, in case of students where that might apply, you can actually make the payment together, since you will be attending the same interview and they are your dependent for that particular process. You might encounter this very charming page, which is the US visa scheduling page, saying that please stay on this page and you will be directed to the visa application and scheduling portal shortly. It is not short, and it definitely takes a long time. But however, you can definitely hold on to this as a normal instance that does actually happen during the application process. Do not, panic. Do not try to keep refreshing the page. It mostly does not work, right? This is just how the portal has been redesigned, and it is not exactly, when it does get over demanded and there are too many requests, it does slow down and create a issue. Moving on, we can have a look at the appointment booking as well. the errors that we have known is that pop-up errors may come. It just says an error has occurred, right? If you weren't able to book it during, if you did not see any dates and you were not able to book it at the first time, when you come back to your portal and log in, you will see this continue application page, right? You will continue the application. You will reach mostly a calendar, which will allow you to schedule the offsite facilitation center, which is the OFC, as well as the appointment booking for the interview. Your patience may be tested, but you do have to do this process hopefully only once for a period of 2 to 3 to 4 years, right? Dates are opened in batches. Sometimes they are opened in a lot of dates are opened at once. Sometimes there are only a few dates that are open. Your patience may be tested, as I said before. Patience is a virtue. Please keep that in mind. You can try different browsers. Make sure that all the extensions are disabled and keep praying to whatever date you prefer. Because honestly speaking, when it comes to this portal, customer support and calling them and emailing them is mostly not something which has worked too much in the past. So let us say you actually are fortunate and are able to book your appointment. The appointment screen kind of looks like this. The appointment confirmation PDF, I mean. Save the appointment confirmation. It is a website that does have errors, but make sure that the PDF does have the barcodes that are over here, right? You can request expedited appointments only after you have requested only after you have claimed the regular appointment first. So, for example, if you have if you are a student whose program is about to begin before the visa appointment that they have got, try to reschedule that appointment. If you don't get a new slot, then in that case, you can request an expedited appointment. In the past, expedited appointments were possible. In fact, until 2019, 2020, we used to get expedited appointments fairly easily for students. But now they have become very, very difficult. So now that you have, let's say, booked your visa appointment, we'll just go a little bit into, at your appointment, what the documents that you will require are there, right? At your appointment, you will basically need your passport. Your photos are not needed unless and until you are going for a unless you're going for an interview waiver. In that case, you need a photo in a US photograph format. Appointment confirmation with the barcode, as I showed in the earlier slide. Proof of the visa fee payment. It can be any kind of screenshot, any kind of payment receipt, any kind of statement, anything like that. The barcode of the visa fee payment receipt is also there in the appointment confirmation. The SEVIS fee payment receipt of the $350, which you paid in the credit card in the first step. The institutional admission letter, you should definitely keep that, even though it's not a completely required thing during your biometrics. I-20 from the institution, which has been signed by you. If you are under 18, for example, if you are an undergrad student who is going for a bachelor's degree, then definitely you will need your parent to sign it as well. Additionally, at your interview, you will need the academic documents. This could be the test scores like, IELTS, TOEFL scores, GRE, GMAT, SAT scores, transcripts, degree, high school mark sheets, so on and so forth. Employment records, if you were ever employed, it's a good idea to have your salary slips, your leaving letter, or your own personal bank statements if you are self-financing. Financial documents like bank letter, loan letter, and these kind of things are, ideally needed for the visa interview as well. So this brings us to probably the most, interesting and the most complex part of the visa interview, which is not as simple a process as you have figured out from the previous slides, which is that it is a bit of a different part of the application process when it comes to other countries. The US visa interview is not as much of a documents-based process as it is a idea of how genuine the visa officer who is there at that point of time thinks you are as a candidate. So the visa interview is something that is necessary for students, and it is something a lot of students end up stumbling. So we're just going to discuss a little bit about what to do in the visa interview. So it is conducted at the embassy or the consulate. There are 5 locations, as you might know. It can be only a few minutes long, right? And it is possible that they may not check your documents, right? There is no private room available, right? And locker space can also be very limited, right? At the issuance of visa takes only 4 or 5 days. So now the main thing to understand is that it is not going to be an interview the way that perhaps you have taken job interviews or interviews for any kind of other thing that you might have done. You have to walk up to a counter, which is similar to if you have been to a US interview before or a biometrics for any other country, you'll be familiar with this aspect. But there is no privacy. You have interviews going on to your left, you have interviews going on to your right, and you have a good idea about whether the person in front of you who went before you was actually denied or accepted, right? Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to hear what the person is saying, although they do have a mic, right? Sometimes it may feel that, the person is being a bit rude, but it's possible that they're not able to hear you. So they're just speaking a bit loudly, and you might think that they're actually being a bit harsh, right? So the visa interview can be a bit stressful, right? But the stress of the visa interview is baked into the application process. So the visa counselor officer who is over there are very well aware of the fact that the students who are attending the visa interview are going to be nervous. So it's perfectly fine if you're feeling nervousness during the application process of the visa interview. Don't worry about that. And don't give any documents or something until and unless it's specifically requested, right? So once the visa interview happens, the visa officer decides whether to do three things. One of which is approve your visa, in which case they take the passport and give it back to you within 4 or 5 days. If you have done a pickup, you will be able to pick it up in 4 or 5 days from the post that you have decided to pick it up from. If you have done a premium delivery, it will show up at your address that you have given with the and you'll have to pay the courier fees of, I think it is 850 these days, right? The second option is that they will deny your visa, in which case they will give you a standard slip called a 214B, sorry, not 221, 214B. It just means that they found that your intent was not able to be proved, right? It's a very common and simple form. It is not personalized, and they don't give any personal reasons. The third option is that 221G profile, where additional information is requested, in which case you might be required to come back and submit more documents or attend go some kind of background verification. Perhaps you're going for some kind of field which requires sensitive handling of information like nuclear physics or medical research and so on and so forth. So in that case, a little bit of background checking is needed or some other documentation is needed. So what are the three pillars of visa success? The three things that the visa officers look for are whether you are a bona fide student, whether you are financially capable of paying for the program that you're enrolled for, and whether you have non-immigration intent. Bona fide student is very simple. It just means that are you a student or are you actually planning to go there and do some kind of crime or work somewhere? Or your primary goal definitely has to be studies and no other thing that actually goes into the mind of the student, whether it is on-campus jobs, whether it is working somewhere, whether it is there are some people who don't have the intent and they just want to go there for migration purposes. So if they do detect that is something which they classify as migration intent, and they would like to prevent that student from getting the student visa. The non-migration intent can be a bit of a factor which students struggle with, because at the end of the day, who is going to say that, they're not willing to work in the US, right? At the end of the day, who is going to say that if they do get offered a job or a citizenship or whatever, they're not going to take that up. However, just going to give you a few do's and don'ts about the visa process so that you can actually tackle these few things from a interview basis. So over the last 10 years, honestly, I've conducted hundreds of visa interviews, hundreds of mock interviews, and the number of times that I've had to tell students the do's and don'ts is pretty high, right? But please remember that whoever is actually taking the interview at the visa office has conducted even far more interviews than me, right? So just a few do's and don'ts. Dress well, definitely, but don't overdo it, right? Don't dress too formally or too casually, right? If you are going for a program which is like an MBA, then it is a good idea to wear, like it is pretty hot right now. So wear a summer blazer maybe, wear a full shirt, wear a tie or something, right? If you are an 18-year-old student who's going for a graphic design program, do not wear a suit that look like you're about to stand behind the reception of a 5-star hotel, right? You should look like exactly what you are. If you are a student, dress smartly. Don't wear anything showy. For the purposes of students who have, long hair, or for example, men who have long hair, they, put it up in a bun or something like that. For men who like to keep beard, even I do, make sure that is nice and trimmed, right? Uh, Definitely make sure that your first impression that you give is right up to the mark and you look exactly like the way you're supposed to as a serious student. If you are for female students, definitely dress soberly. Don't wear too much makeup. Don't wear something that is too showy. And again, jewelry as well. Something very minimal. Something very sober as well. Right? Be honest. Do not try to be overconfident and do not try to mislead the officer who is over there. Be honest about your profile. If they ask you, do you plan to take up OPT? Say yes, I do plan to take up OPT, because optional practical training is a part of the F1 student visa, and it is your right. If you have the chance to actually work in the US, whether it is for 1 year, whether it is for 3 years, if you are going for a STEM program, and most students are going for a STEM program, then say that you would like to take it up if you get it, right? You can also add that my long-term goal would be to come back and work in India. Now, long-term can be 5 years, it can be 3 years, it can be 2 years, right? But the number of times, again, I have heard that I will come back to India, I will not take my OPT, and I will work in top MNC companies, right? That is just too much. That is something that if I have heard so many times, the visa officer also has, right? Those are what are called template answers. So don't give template answers. Be honest, be respectful, maintain a respectful body language, right? Maintain eye contact and be engaged with the person who is taking the interview, right? The other thing that you should not be doing is interrupting the officer. I know many of you will do and end up going for a visa prep and end up thinking that they know all the questions. So before the question is even over, you will actually start the answer, right? Don't interrupt the officer. Let them complete the question. Give them a polite and respectful response, right? There are so many rumors going around. There are so many things that I have heard, again, over a long period of time. There is some officer in Mumbai who is rejecting everyone. There's a Chinese woman in Chennai who rejects everyone. Ignore all that. Honestly, it doesn't matter. 140,000 students, 140,000 students got approved, right? You can be one of them, right? If there is something wrong in your profile, then there's no point lying about it. As if they do find out, you are basically going to be you are going to find it very difficult for any future application. So what are the common questions which are asked, right? Obviously, this is not an exclusive list. As I mentioned, there are probably like many more questions that the conversation can go in anyway, right? But these are some of the common questions which are asked, which is that, what is the purpose of your visit? Why this university? Why the US, right? Who is your sponsor? What does your sponsor do? What are your future plans? If you're taking a loan, how will you pay back the loan, right? What are the terms of your loan, right? Why this particular course? What skills do you gain? What is this gap in your profile? Or do you intend to look for jobs in the US? So these are just some of the questions that are there, right? It's not an exhaustive list, right? And these are not questions for which you need to have answers which you have copied from somewhere, right? You need to know your profile thoroughly. If you know see, at the end of the day, you have taken the step of applying for a program in the US. Whether it is a bachelor's, whether it is a master's, whether it is a PhD, whether it is something else, you decided to do it because of quality of education or because you felt that, the kind of exposure that you would get in the US is definitely better. If you do have some, relatives over there, do not try to hide that. Definitely mention that, if they say that, we have this relative, we have first cousin, we have second cousin, that's perfectly fine. Mention that it's there, but it's a good idea to be upfront about it and also be thorough. So that if they question you that did you apply to this university only because your brother is there or only because your sister is there, you should definitely make sure that you have some other explanations as well, right? So what happens when students are, in the thinking about reasons for the visa rejection? Possible complexities, as I have said, but I have, made it very clear that, red flags, that is the term that we see and hear a lot these days. But What are possible red flags in someone's profile? The biggest one is definitely a previous visa rejection. If your visa has been rejected once for a student visa, it becomes quite difficult to actually overcome that unless and until you have something what is called a material change in your profile. Now, what is material, right? It could be that you have changed the program that you're applying for. It could be that you've changed the university that you're applying for. It could be that you have changed the kind of work experience that you had. You shifted to a different job. It could be that you actually have a lot more money at this point of time. You've gotten a better financial plan, right? There could be many reasons, but if you don't have a material change in your profile, if you are applying with the same profile, fine, go ahead. I definitely recommend to try twice at least for students who've got one visa rejection. But after twice in the same intake or within a short period of time, it does not make any sense. Either you could consider another country or, maybe work on your profile a little bit more and then decide to go for a separate intake. Information which is incomplete or incorrect in the DS-160 can also be a factor. Definitely make sure that you are putting in everything that is there in the DS-160. If you have a relative and you're not mentioned that, if you have got someone who stayed there in the US for, a long period of time and came back and you did not mention it, or if you have a cousin there who they do have some kind of connection with, so make sure that those things are clearly mentioned in the DS-160. There are some universities which are actually known to the US government. They are approved, they are giving credits, and they are allowed to issue I-20s, and students are allowed to apply for visas with them. But they are what is called as diploma bills or basically universities where the degrees, like they end up admitting everyone, and students end up going there and they don't actually attend classes. They go and, work somewhere, or they do other kinds of things and so on and so forth. So those kind of universities can be a bit of a problem, right? I don't exactly have a exhaustive list or anything like that, but that is something that is there. Long gaps in your profile. If you're not able to explain a long gap in your profile, that can be a problem. Because preparing for your masters after your bachelor's, if you are planning to do maybe a 3-month gap, 4-month gap, 5-month gap, 6-month gap, that's still okay. But the moment it becomes a 1-year gap and so on and so forth, it becomes a bit of a issue. So just please be aware that you have some kind of explanation for the gap, right? Each factor is also there. Universities don't have any maximum ages, but we have seen 30 plus people who are, above the age of 30 for masters and above the age of 20 for undergrad. They do find it a bit difficult. PhD is not an issue. MBA also at top universities, definitely not an issue. But if you're going for a master's, MBA, and you are 30 plus, can be a bit of a risk factor. If you're changing your field completely, so for example, if you're going from design to business analytics, if you're going from journalism to software, if you're going from psychology to law, and psychology to law is actually not so, it's quite understandable actually. But the point is that if you're changing your field, and again, if you give any kind of template answers that this is the field that I want to do, this is the field that, will give me a good job and so on and so forth, and you're not able to explain that properly, that becomes an issue. So if you're changing from any field to any field, make sure that you've got a good explanation for it. And that all comes down to communication skills. If you have poor communication skills, no matter how good your profile, unless or until you're going to a top university, you will find it difficult to explain to the visa officer what is going on and what your reasons for pursuing that program are. Siblings who have migrated, that is something which is a bit of a niche thing. My brother himself lives in the US and has migrated over there. But there are risk factors involved there, because you do have to mention in the DS-160 that your immediate sibling is there with an immigrant, as an immigrant. So if you're going to a university which is close to them, that can be a bit of a risk factor. But again, you should be upfront about it. There's no point in hiding it. They will know it for sure. Unclear funding plans can be a huge problem. If you don't have a particular plan for the entire process, whether it is, with loan, whether it is with savings, whether it is your entire, application process, you should definitely make sure that you have funding plans for the entire duration of your program. When it comes to a loan, make sure that you don't just completely say that, I will come back to India, I will pay back the loan, that. Think about it, right? You can say that during my OPT, I will earn some money in the US and then come back to India. look for a job over here, right? And then if they do ask, if you're offered a job in the US, what will you do? You will consider it. That, yeah, I will consider it at that point of time. Maybe you could say that, your family members are over here, right? I mean, the point is that there is no right answer or wrong answer. It is just that there are going to be different answers for each student. And the more true you are to yourself, the better it is going to be for you. So just, before we sort of conclude this, presentation, a few thoughts from personal experience, right? I have worked with many students, again, as I mentioned, over, a 10-year period. Serious applications that have, gone through and succeeded in the visa application process are ones who take the process seriously. Your profile is unique and your answers should also be unique, right? The number of times I've had to communicate with students as a result of some kind of rumor that is there on Telegram or WhatsApp, it is just mostly a cause of stress and misinformation, right? Do not listen to those. They will only cause you stress and you will not be able to successfully clear your interview. You may successfully clear it, but you would just trust me on this, that you would feel a lot happier, a lot better if you just ignore that aspect of things and just go ahead with a nice, clear mindset. As I mentioned before, presentation matters. The way you present yourself in the visa interview is as important as the documents you are carrying and as important as the way you have submitted. I mean, the way you have presented yourself is as important as the information that you have submitted and the documents that you are carrying. Because if they feel at any point of time that you are not being genuine, they will reject your visa then. Remember, it is not a board exam, right? You don't have to stand over there and mug up answers and, just start blurting them out one by one. Make sure that you're having a formal conversation with your visa interviewer over there. Rather than telling the visa officers what you think that they want to hear, just be truthful, be honest, and come up with a good reason for yourself to actually go to the US, right? So that pretty much brings us to the end of this presentation from Longshore Education. I am going to be here for some time and so that we can take a few questions and answers as well. Just a couple of things. My colleague who's also at the call will post in the chat the Google form. If you would like personalized visa counseling, we do offer that for students who are interested in the personalized services. Like, for example, if you want interview prep and so on and so forth, we do offer that. It is not going to be something which is, as I mentioned, we don't believe in giving them the answers that, they want to hear. The idea is that all students are, different. And we believe that the students should be expressing themselves properly. And we try to make sure that you get the best of your profile, right? The Google form definitely also has people who actually fill up the Google form. The first 15 people, we're offering a discount of approximately 2,500. Our visa counseling services are at 15,000, but we are offering a discount of 2,500 to the first 15 people who fill up the form. So if you do get the form at the end of this webinar, you can definitely fill it up and we'd be happy to assist you. So we will just start taking some questions. Right. So we have one question saying that we'll be doing job. I'm the student who will be doing my job. My tuition cost is 100,000. How do I explain to them if I would be returning back and working in India? So, okay. So if you are, your tuition cost is $100,000, as you mentioned, right? But there is no reason for you to say that, you will come back to India immediately, right? You can say that you will, pursue your OPT for some time, right? You will, you can say that I would like to gain some work experience or practical experience in the US, right? And then like to come back to India. That's perfectly fine. It's absolutely okay for you to consider that, the long-term justification has to be that you will come back to India. Now, when that will happen is entirely up to you. You can say it will be in 2 years, it can be in 3 years, it can be 4 years. But it is a good idea to have that at the very end, that my long-term goal is to settle in India, right? Indian salary will not match a US salary. They also know that. And if there's a student who will be, taking up a $100,000 loan, expecting them to come back to India immediately would not make sense. Okay, so I have just answered that. Moving on to the next one. It is ideal to take a full loan for education. You can take a full loan as well. Absolutely fine. As I mentioned before, you just need to make sure that you have a plan to pay it back, right? It is ideal. It is actually better if you have some kind of savings from your family as well, because it ends up becoming a kind of ties to the home country. Because if you do have reason to come back to India and you don't have too many liabilities, it becomes much more likely that you will come back to India. Even though in the long term, you might actually end up working on an H-1B visa or applying for a second H-1B visa or applying for a green card as well. That doesn't really matter. So you could definitely end up taking the loan. But ideally, you would have some kind of, funding as well from your side. Your visa was previously rejected under 214B. How do I answer the question, why was your visa rejected? So the thing is that if your visa was rejected under 214B, you should have some kind of material change in your profile, as I mentioned before. Now, there's a difference between material and immaterial, as I mentioned before, right? Immaterial would be something like, let's say you are applying in August, which is fall 2024, right? Same university, same profile. You applied spring 2025, right? Not much has changed, right? Same university, same profile, and same funding, everything if you submit. Maybe there's a bit of a luck chance that, you got a bad interviewer in the first case and you might be able to clear it in the second time. But until unless you have changed something, like you have changed your job or you have, acquired a lot more funding somehow, or your loan terms has gone from not collateral to collateral, something has to change for you to become a materially different applicant. When you say that, why was it rejected? You can definitely say that, I think I was not able to communicate my case properly to the previous visa officer. But honestly speaking, I don't remember. I don't exactly know, right? Because the form that they give you, the 214B section, is pretty unclear. They don't give you an idea of the exact reason. So you can speculate that I think I was not able to communicate my case or anything like that. But again, you can always reach out to us and we can see your particular case if there was anything specific. Because as I said before, this is not a template answer. We don't have right answers and wrong answers. We can definitely give you a better advice if you would like to go ahead. Will I face any problems during the visa interview if I have two I-20s, one from a good university and another from a slightly lower ranked university, which I have decided to attend for personal reasons? Okay, so that is actually, again, a complex question. But if you have, good university is also a relative term, right? Like if, let's say, you have got one I-20 from, let us say, University of California, Berkeley, right? And the second I-20 is from Cleveland State University, right? Now, the gap between these two universities is too big, right? There's no sense why you should attend Cleveland State Universities over University of California, Berkeley, right? But, for example, if you have got a I-20 from, let's say, universities which are not that far apart in perceived quality, right? You can have your personal reasons for it, right? If you have gone for a university which can be considered comparable, right? Or within the same league of universities, it's perfectly fine. You can explain to them that I felt this course was better, I felt this location was better, I felt this weather was better. It could be anything, right? I am a 2024 graduate. I don't have any experience. However, I am a stock market trader and going for my MBA. Okay, so this is again a bit of a complex question. If you are a freelance stock trader and that is all that you have done, and you are going for an MBA, you have about 2 years of work experience. You should just be able to explain what you are doing. Are you doing it completely solo? Are you doing it as part of your family firm? Are you do you have some kind of proof about like what kind of money that you have made? Is there anything else to showcase, what you have done? This is again, difficult to answer completely just based on this. I would need much more background before I can give a proper response for this. But yeah, it's a bit of a side. Just to be, just to a little bit more insight is that it's can be considered a bit of a red flag, but not insurmountable. If you would like to consider it. What about the enrollment fees? Do we have to pay before reaching USA or after reaching? Is it refundable considering I want to take transfer to another university? So if the deposit which you have paid, that is not refundable unless in some cases if your visa gets rejected. So if your visa gets rejected, you can tell the universities that, the visa got rejected for XYZ reasons, right? And I would like to get my deposit back. Enrollment fee, I'm assuming that you mean by the deposit to actually get the visa process going, right? So if you have got some kind of, huge payment, if you've made like full tuition fees, because usually does not, US does not really require that. Canada and Australia are the ones where you actually have to make, first year tuition fee payment or, first semester tuition fee payment. Mostly the payment happens within 1 week or, 2 weeks of the semester starting, right? Will they ask about technical questions? So technical questions can be, they won't ask you like, really specific technical questions, but let's say if you're doing some kind of semiconductor research, they might ask, what kind of semiconductor research do you get, right? Will they ask you like, what kind of programming do you do? They might ask like, yeah, what kind of programming do you do? But they are not experts in your subject matter. You are supposed to be an expert in your subject matter. And if you deliver your material confidently, they will not challenge you on it, right? They don't know the idea is that if they ask you what skills have you got from your previous job, and you say, I have got Python and I have got Java and I have got C++, right? And then they ask you what skills do you hope to gain from the masters, right? And then you say, I'm going to gain Java and I'm going to get Python and I'm going to get C++. They will reject your visa because you're saying that you already have the skills and you're not actually gaining anything, right? If you say something like, I'm going to learn advanced tools that are not accessible to me here, like X, Y, Z, or, whatever it is, right? The latest technologies that are not available, right? Will having two I-20s be a problem? I believe I have already answered that. Not an issue. Just have an explanation for why you chose one university over another university. That should be absolutely fine. I want to shift from CS, computer science, to IS, information systems. Is it similar or will there be any problem? CS to IS is close enough. Computer science and information systems are closely related. Information systems is basically, it can be information technology in the business use cases. So there is a lot of overlap over there. If you have some kind of work experience in the field, it can help to, mention what your experience and everything is, what made you choose information systems program over a pure computer science program. But again, it is all about communication skills. It is all about how you explain your case to them, not about the pure understanding. I've got students who've got for after psychology for computer science and information systems, in fact, right? I've got students who was, who went from accounting to business analytics. I have got students who went from, BCA, a BCA degree, to graphic design, right? So that's not something which is completely insurmountable. You just need to have a proper explanation for the entire reasoning for the entire process. Can I change my university after visa? So there are two things. One is when you enter US for the first time, your university on your visa needs to match the university that you are going to, right? So at the port of entry, the US is actually quite complex, where a different agency gives you the visa, which is the Department of State. A different agency gives you the I-20, which is the Department of Homeland Security. And a different agency gives you the right to enter. Am I audible? I don't know. Just drop in a thumbs up if I'm audible again.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So as you can probably tell, I've had a power cut at my house. Summers in India. What can you do? But as I was saying, that with the process of entering the US, if you get the entry, like you get the chance to actually enter the US, and you have different university name on your visa, and you have the different university name that you actually want to go to. It's a good idea to do that after you enter the US, right? You can try to transfer after that. Beforehand, doing it is going to be a bit of a problem because you will have to definitely go for the visa again. Technically, you already have an F1 visa approved, so you can apply for a new F1 visa, and you are a Dropbox case, and you can go for that, right? But the US Travel Docs website, and if you are someone who would like, Sajid, if you could drop our email address on the chat or as a reply to this particular case about changing the university after the visa. If you are planning to do that, it can be a bit of an issue because the explanation which is given by the US Travel Docs is that you're not allowed to change the university. So yeah, let me again get in touch with us, this particular case who has given their entire visa interview experience, right? Let's have a conversation. Let us see what we can do for you. Right. I think I've answered all the questions that are there on the profile. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us via the email or the number which is there on the particular screen. I'm just putting the screen up for the last time. I believe you should be able to see it now. If you can, please take a screenshot, reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you if there's any kind of information that we can do, if there's any visa application that if we can assist you in your future visa application, or help you with the application process if you're applying for a later intake as well, right? Thank you all for taking time out from your weekend for attending this session. We will be posting this on YouTube as well. So if let's say you would like to share this with someone, we would be posting this on YouTube shortly, maybe in about 24 to 48 hours. And again, apologies for the connection, but it does happen. And thank you for your time. I will be closing the webinar today.